What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I would like to do some quick Atlanta Falcons news and notes, and then I would like to talk about why our Atlanta Falcons will have a top 5 offense this upcoming season. But with that being said, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate everybody who continues to tune into the channel and continues to support the channel. Continue to share all of this content on social media. I appreciate you guys who follow me on Twitter. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So first, quick Atlanta Falcons news and notes. We did sign Deone Bucannon, a linebacker. He goes about 6'1", 220 pounds. I'm a huge fan of this signing. Deone Bucannon is one of those players that I wanted our Atlanta Falcons to sign. I believe it was 2 years ago when Julio Jones broke his foot. I love what Deone Bucannon brings to the table. He's a very physical, nasty, smallish linebacker. He also can play the safety role. Originally, when he came out and was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, he was a first-round draft pick for the Arizona Cardinals, and he was drafted as a safety, and they end up converting him to a linebacker because he was very physical, and he's a great tackler. If you go look at his stats, he had over 100 tackles, I believe, in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. But he's always been up in the 80s to 90s range of when it comes to tackles when he was playing with the Arizona Cardinals. And he's one of those guys that's like a Keanu Neal hybrid linebacker safety type, or a Kamal Ishmael that was formerly an Atlanta Falcon. And I love what he brings to the table. He's excellent in coverage because he's a smallish linebacker, and he played the safety. He played as a safety in this league, so he knows different coverage concepts, and he knows route concepts for wide receivers and tight ends. And he's a very physical player. He's kind of like a poor man's Tyrann Mathieu. If you know anything about Tyrann Mathieu, the honey badger that plays with the Chiefs, he's very physical, a smallish player, but plays like a linebacker, plays like a land shark. And that's how Deone Bucannon is. He's a player that runs sideline to sideline all over the field, very physical, not afraid to come downhill, not afraid to take on blockers. He's, like I said, very physical. I think he's going to be an excellent piece for our Atlanta Falcons. I've said it before. I love what the front office have done this offseason. My hats is off to Thomas Dimitroff, Rich McKay. I love what these guys have done over this offseason with restructuring this roster for our Atlanta Falcons. I feel like they've done a great job of bringing in veteran players, bringing guys in on small deals. And I love the youth movement that they've added to the Falcons team. I really think that this signing of Deone Bucannon is also a great depth move. So if we have any injuries, meaning if Foye Oluokun goes down with injury, knock on wood, or if Julio Jones or one of those guys go down with injury, he's a guy that you can plug and play him. Like I said, he's been in the league for, I think, about 8 or 9 years, so he's a veteran at this point. He's familiar with the Atlanta Falcons scheme on defense. And as you know, Jeff Ulbrich, the linebackers coach, and now I think he's the assistant head coach as well, is an excellent teacher. He's an excellent guy at teaching our linebackers the game of football and how to play the linebacker position, and teaching these guys our scheme. And I really think that him and Deone Bucannon are going to kick it off. Deone Bucannon is one of those guys that look like he loves ball, he loves football, and I believe him and Jeff Ulbrich are really going to kick it off really well. And I think that he's going to play very well in our scheme. As you know, we love those smallish, quick linebackers like a Julio Jones, a Foye Oluokun, and now Deone Bucannon. He's one of those guys that, like I said, can run sideline to sideline, can get you 100+ tackles if you need him to. And he also is a guy who can cover out in space, cover running backs, and cover tight ends. And as you know, the NFL right now is a game of the tight ends. It's a bunch of good tight ends in the league now, and it's a bunch of good running backs that can catch the ball out of the field, out of the backfield. So you definitely need linebackers that can cover. And I think we've done a great job of bringing in linebackers that can cover out in space. And I do think, like I said before, that he'll be an upgrade over Devondre Campbell that we had on our team when it comes to coverage and also when it comes to speed, because Deon Buchanan is one of those guys that's really quick because he's smaller. He's very quick, and he's also has great instincts. He does a good job at being around the football. He has a great nose for the football, and he knows where the football is and most of the time, and he knows how to diagnose plays, offensive plays. So I definitely love this signing of Deon Buchanan coming over to the Falcons. I really think he's going to prosper in his role with the team, and I really think that he's going to push Ofoye Oluokun for that starting job, and I really think he's going to push Leroy Reynolds, who we brought back as a veteran linebacker. I really think he's going to push those guys, and I think also he will be a great guy that we can use in special teams. Deon Buchanan is going to be one of those guys that you can put on kickoff coverage because he loves to lay the boom. He's a very hard hitter. And he's a guy that you can put on punt coverage if you need to. So I really think a lot of those guys, like a Sherrod Niesman, that we've had on the roster that's been playing the safety role and also playing on special teams, Deon Buchanan is going to definitely be trying to take one of those young guys' spot or one of those veteran guys that's been around the team spot. So they're definitely going to have to bring their A game. But like I said, I've loved what the front office has done with this roster. I think they've done a good job of making sure players are not getting comfortable, but they're making sure that every position is going to have to compete for their spot on that 55-man roster at the end of preseason and at the end of training camp. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the Atlanta Falcons offense and why I think that we're going to have a top 5 offense this season. Number one, I really think that the offensive line is going to be much improved this year. Knock on wood, we do need to stay healthy because I really believe the injuries last season is what really hurt our offensive line last season with our number 1 draft pick, Chris Lindstrom, going down with injury and breaking his foot. The first game against the Minnesota Vikings last season at that guard position, that really hurt the team because then we had to throw Jamon Brown into the starting role, and we didn't have a lot of depth on the offensive line. So I think they did a good job of bringing in the kid McCray from the Browns, and we brought in a number of rotational pieces to help the offensive line. I think bringing in Matt Hennessy was a great pickup out of Temple to play that guard spot and also play the center role when Alex Mack decides to retire. So I think we've done a good job of solidifying that line. We just need the guys to remain healthy. If those guys can stay healthy up front and begin to gel, I really think that we're going to have something special up front. And I believe, number one, I said the offensive line because I really think that everything starts up front. Last year, Matt Ryan was running for his life, and Matt Ryan has proven if you give him time in the pocket, if you protect him, if you give him a running game, Matt Ryan is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league, no doubt. When he's playing at the top of his game, he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. So I definitely think that Matt Ryan is going to have a great season because those guys are going to protect him. I also think the offensive line is going to do a better job in the run game of opening up holes for the running backs to be able to find running lanes. I really think that the offensive line is going to be more physical because Matt Hennessy, Alex Mack, Caleb McGarry, Chris Lindstrom, all those guys are road graders. Jake Matthews, those guys are nasty up front, especially Chris Lindstrom and especially Caleb McGarry. Those guys and Alex Mack, those guys are very nasty. I've seen a lot of tape on Matt Hennessy. I went and watched some tape on Matt Hennessy. He's another guy that looks like he's a very nasty player. And he graded well in college. He had a very good grade collegiately last year. He didn't miss a lot of blocks, and he didn't allow a lot of sacks when he was playing at Temple. So I'm expecting big things out of Hennessy. I do believe that Hennessy's going to win that starting guard role. But we just need those guys to gel together. You don't need a bunch of stars up front, meaning 5-star players or elite Pro Bowl offensive linemen. You just need those guys to play as one. And I think that those guys are going to do a good job of gelling. And I think Alex Mack is one of the best leaders when it comes to the offensive line. I think he's probably the best center in the league, if not the best, definitely a top 3 center in the league. And I think that he's going to get those guys ready to play. And I really expect the offensive line to be improved this season. Caleb McGarry proved that he was worth that number 1 pick. The first time he faced Cam Jordan of the Saints, He really manhandled him. And Caleb McGarry is very big, country strong. And he did a great job against Cam Jordan. He did a great job. He did a great job last year, period, of being a rookie. He really impressed me. He was tried by fire last year because he had to go up against J.J. Watt. He had to go up against, as I mentioned, Cam Jordan twice. And he went up against the best guys, and he really held his own at that right tackle spot. So I was really impressed with the kid, and I was really impressed with Chris Lindstrom when he came back in the fold after being injured. He really stepped up his game in that game against the 49ers. He was very nasty in that game, had a couple pancake blocks against the Bosa. I think his name is Nick Bosa. He did a very good job of laying the wood and pancaking him a couple times in that game. So I really expect this offensive line to play well this season, and they're going to be the number one key to our offense getting off to a great start. Number two, I really think that Todd Gurley is going to have a big season. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Todd Gurley, and if Todd Gurley can give us anything that he did with the Rams, if he can give us anything from 2 years ago when he really went off and he won the Offensive Player of the Year, if he has any juice left in the tank, I really think he's going to have a big season for our Atlanta Falcons. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him and they're talking about his injuries. But if you want to be real about the situation, Todd Gurley didn't get a lot of running attempts last year. The Rams basically only gave him the ball a couple times a game, like they had him on a pitch count. So he wasn't getting as many carries as he should have. And I really think that Todd Gurley would have had better stats than he had last season if the Rams would have gave him more carries. And I really think that the Rams regret not giving him those carries because they end up missing the playoffs because they were trying to save Todd Gurley for the playoffs, and they really hurt their team by not using their best offensive weapon, which was Todd Gurley. So I really think he's going to flourish with the role here in Atlanta with Julio Jones and Ridley and all of those guys on the outside and Hayden Hurst up the middle. I really think that they're not going to be able to load the box against us in the run game. And I really think that Todd Gurley is going to blossom from that. He's really going to reap the benefits of Julio Jones and of Calvin Ridley on the outside. And I really think that he's going to have a big year. Number three, Matt Ryan, as I was talking about. Matt Ryan, I really believe he's going to have an MVP season this year. I really think he's going to be a candidate for MVP this year. He has a ton of weapons all over the field, whether it's Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. I recently heard that he's working with Hayden Hurst, that Hayden Hurst has been going to his house or going to a football field, and they've been working out together, getting their timing and all of that down. And we know last time Matt Ryan was working with a tight end, which was Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper ended up making 2 Pro Bowls back to back. So I really expect Hayden Hurst to surprise a lot of people. I do think that Hayden Hurst is a better version of Austin Hooper because he's more explosive after the catch. Hayden Hurst is one of those guys that can catch a slant pattern and take it to the house. He's a lot quicker than Austin Hooper, and that's the reason why Hayden Hurst was a #1 draft pick. He was another one of those players where I feel like it was a low risk, high reward with us trading for him because he can bring a lot to the table. I feel like he's a better blocker than Austin Hooper, and I feel like he's more explosive than Austin Hooper. He's one of those guys that can catch a pass over the middle of the field and he can take it to the house. Austin Hooper was one of those guys that was a catch a button hook, like a Jason Witten type, catch a button hook and go to the ground. He wasn't great after the catch, and Austin Hooper was not a fast player. He was very slow after catching the ball. He would try to advance the ball, and he loved hurdling people and things of that nature. But I think Hayden Hurst is more physical and more explosive. After the catch, I really think that Hayden Hurst can do more damage than Austin Hooper. But like I was saying, number 3, I do think that Matt Ryan, like I was saying, is going to have a big season. I really think he's going to be in the running for MVP this year. I really think that he's going to have one of those seasons like 2016 where he hit 13 different players for touchdowns. Like I said, bringing in Laquan Treadwell, also having Russell Gage playing that slot role. He really came on late last season. They even started to give Christian Blake some snaps last year when Julio Jones was out against the Saints in that Thanksgiving matchup. And even Zacchaeus was another guy that got in later on in the season and started to blossom as a wide receiver, as a young wide receiver. He had a 90-plus yard touchdown against the Panthers. So I really think that Matt Ryan has a ton of weapons. Another player that is going under the radar and a lot of people are not talking about, he was a free agent signing, was the rookie Jarrett Pinkney. I really think that Jarrett Pinkney is another player that can come in and play that tight end role and be, we can have possibly a three-headed monster with him, Jaden Graham, and Hayden Hurst. I really think that we can run some 3 tight end sets like we used to do when we had Kyle Shanahan here and we had Levine Toilolo and we had Hooper. I really think that we can run some 2 and 3 tight end sets and catch a lot of people off guard where they would think we're running the football, and we can hit them with a play action pass deep down the center of the field because we have good tight ends. And I really think that this tight end group is going to really shock a lot of people and really impress a lot of people. So number 4, reason why I think that we're going to have a big year on offense and be a top 5 offense is the wide receiving core. I really think that we have one of the best wide receiving cores in the game. Everything starts and ends with Julio Jones in the wide receiver room. He does a great job of mentoring these young guys and bringing these young guys along. He's not jealous of these guys, and he's trying to teach these guys as much as he can. Julio Jones does a great job of putting his arms around these young guys and mentoring them, just like Roddy White did for him. He's definitely paying it forward when it comes to teaching these young wide receivers the route concepts and teaching these young guys how to be a professional. And Julio Jones is a very humble superstar. Most wide receivers are divas. I don't consider Julio Jones a diva wide receiver because you never hear anything negative in the media about Julio Jones. Even when he was going through his contract negotiations 2 years ago when he was looking to get paid, Julio Jones always has been very professional and does a great job of bringing these young guys along. So I really think that we have with him, Calvin Ridley, I really think we have the best tandem wide receivers in the league, and I also think that we have the best wide receiving core because our wide receiving core is very deep. Julio, Ridley, and then in the slot, I think Russell Gage is really underrated, and he can really be a special player. Christian Blake, I think, is really special. Laquan Treadwell, I keep forgetting about him. He's another guy that was a first-round draft pick and a guy out of Ole Miss who was very physical, very good at high pointing the football. So I really think we have a lot of guys, and it's going to be very hard for teams to cover our wide receivers. And with that being said, number 5 reason why I think that we're going to have a great season and be a top 5 offense is just collectively the play calling by Dirk Cutter. I really think that Dirk Cutter now has a complete team when it comes to weaponry. I feel like this is probably the best team far as weapons that we have to use on offense. I do feel like this is probably the best roster that Dirk Cutter has ever coached. Far as how deep this roster is in depth, I feel like we don't have any missing pieces on this team. I don't feel like there's anything missing, any holes in this team. I feel like in the past, we've kind of had a drop off after players would go down with injury. We didn't have players that could step up and play that role. But this year, I really think that we in the running back, whether it's the running backs, whether it's the wide receiver, whether it's the tight ends, I don't feel like we have any holes in any of these positions. I feel like the next man up in this scenario with the roster that we have this year, I feel like it won't be a huge drop off. The only place I could see it could be possibly a little bit of a drop-off is if Julio Jones, knock on wood, were to go down with injury. But I really don't think, even with that, Calvin Ridley is a number 1 wide receiver. He just plays the number 2 spot because of Julio Jones. So I don't really feel like we have any holes on this team. If Todd Gurley, for any reason, were to go down, I feel like Brian Hill could definitely be a starting running back in this league. I also think that Quadri Olesen and Ito Smith, with that 3-headed monster in the backfield, I really think that, like I said, this team has great depth. Hayden Hurst, if he were to go down for any reason, we still have Jalen Graham. We still have Jarrett Pinkney. So we have a ton of weaponry. And I really think that Dirk Cutter has no excuse this season why we shouldn't dominate. I think that he's going to really do a good job this season of mixing up the runs and the passes. And I really think that he's going to really prosper as the OC this season. I really think a lot of people have forgotten about how good of an OC Dirk Cutter is and was. If you remember back in 2012 when we went to the NFC Championship game, he did a great job of calling that NFC Championship game between the 49ers. To be honest, we should have won that game against the 49ers in 2012 against Colin Kaepernick and those guys. If you remember the blatant pass interference at the end of the game, Navarro Bowman on Roddy White, a blatant pass interference. But if you remember in that game, Dirk Cutter did a great job of being aggressive and attacking those guys deep down the field. Julio Jones had 2 deep touchdown catches. And that, to me, that 2012 season was one of the best rosters we had with Roddy White, Julio Jones, the Hall of Famer, Tony Gonzalez, Turner the Burner, Michael Turner in the backfield. So I feel like this team is just as comparable or just as good as that team that we had back in 2012. And I feel like it's no holes and nothing missing with this team. And I really think that Dirk Cutter has no excuse. He has elite weapons. Everywhere you turn, we have another weapon. So I really think that we're going to be hard to stop this season. I really don't see any team being able to stop us from scoring 25 to 30 points per game. I really think that this team is probably going to lead the league in scoring or be one of the top teams right up there with the Kansas Cities and right up there with all of the high-power offenses around the league. Like I said, I really think that Matt Ryan is going to be able to take his game to the next level this season. And I really think with it being the second year for some of these players that just were getting used to the Dirk Cutter offense last season because it was his first season, I really think those guys are going to be more comfortable in their roles, like a Brian Hill, like a Russell Gage. Those guys got a lot of time. They got a lot of time to go and study the playbook. And they had a lot of time to work with Dirk Cutter over the last season and over this offseason. So I really think a lot of those guys are going to take the next step, like a Russell Gage, like a Brian Hill. I expect those guys to take a big leap this year. Zacchaeus, all of those guys, Christian Blake, I expect those guys to take a big leap this upcoming season. And I really think that this team is going to be very, very high-powered. We're going to have a very potent offense. And then my last but not least reason why I think we're going to have one of the best offenses in the league would be just the veteran leadership that's on this team. As I was talking about, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Hayden Hurst, all these guys, I feel like we've done a great job. Todd Gurley, I think we've done a great job of bringing in veterans in each room, the quarterback room, the wide receiver room, the running back room. All of those rooms have veterans. Hayden Hurst and in the tight ends room, I feel like every single room or section you look at, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, the tight ends, we have a leader in each room. And I really think that that's very important to have a veteran in each room where those younger guys have someone who can help them study, and also they can look to a professional, because sometimes it's easier to learn from a player than it is to learn from a coach, because you basically can learn from somebody that is on the field and you basically can see through their eyes because they're on the field and they can tell you what to look for. Sometimes it's harder to learn from a coach than it is to learn from a player who's played the game and who's out there on the field with you. And I think that that's going to be, pay big dividends. So I believe in having at least one veteran in each room. And I feel like each room, like I said, whether you break it down to the quarterback's room, the running back's room, the tight end's room, the wide receiver room, I feel like each one of those sections have a veteran player. And I believe that that's going to go a long way with bringing along these younger guys that's still learning the game, like a Quadre Olison and a Brian Hill and an Ito Smith. They're going to be able to learn from one of the best running backs in Todd Gurley. Whether it's Russell Gage, Christian Blake, Zacchaeus, those guys can continue to learn from one of the best, one of the best in the league in Julio Jones. In the quarterback's room, Kirk Benkirk can learn from Matt Schaub and can learn from Matt Ryan. So I really think it's important to have veterans on your team where players can continue to grow, continue to flourish, and continue to learn the game of football and to learn how to be a professional, learn how to study the playbook, and learn how to study in the meeting rooms to prepare for games. Because if you know anything about the NFL, they say that the games are won and lost during the week. That's where the games are won and lost. During the strategies, coming up with game plans, coming up with strategies, knowing what to do in certain scenarios and certain situations is very important. So I really think that we have great position coaches and we have great veterans. But with that being said, this being your boy Jew, let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think about Dayon Buchanan coming over to the linebackers room. I really think that we have some head busters out there this year. We have some hard hitting players. We have some dogs out there, man. I really think that we have some dogs on this roster. I'm really hyped up and I'm really ready for football to ramp up, ready for training camp, ready for preseason so I can start breaking down the preseason games, ready to see which players are going to step up into these new roles. But with that being said, I'm going to holler at you guys in the next video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. I'll holler at you guys later. All right, peace.